This is Leave Your Mark. I'm Vince Cortese, and today's guest is Daryl Whiten. Daryl's a very dear friend of mine. He's from Frederick, Maryland. He and I met at Clarion University on a basketball scholarship where the final 2 years he was the team captain. He would go on after graduating with a communications degree from Clarion University to be a coach and develop his career out in the community. Now, he has many titles. He's a broadcaster, a board of director. He works with the Men's Fellowship. He does charity work, and he's a member of the Frederick, Maryland Hall of Fame. I want to thank you for being here today, Daryl. Appreciate your time and being here, sharing your story.
Thank you, man. I truly appreciate the opportunity. Truly a blessing.
Today's sponsor is Hello Yoga World. Yoga for the Earth and all her citizens, powered by Web3 technology. Hello Yoga World is a global community yoga enthusiast combining ancient wisdom with crypto economics to elevate human consciousness and regenerate Mother Earth.
Hi there, and welcome. Now it's time for America's favorite podcast, Leave Your Mark, with your host, Vince Cortese.
If it's fly, loose fitted, it's Cortese. If freeze and chub is in it, it's Cortese.
Leave Your Mark is about inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
Pass the word from Brooklyn to Pittsburgh, from urban to suburb, it's Cortese, you heard?
And here is our host, Vince Cortese.
Well, I just want to touch on a quick thing, because my situation of going through my cancer, and Daryl and I are friends we figured it out, over 35 years now. He was an integral part, him and his family, his mom, and the women at the church, in helping me heal. We were taking phone calls at 5:30 a.m. and just praying for healing. And I want to officially thank you for that. That meant a lot to me. And it speaks of your character that we're going to talk about here for the next 20 minutes or so. So I appreciate that very much.
Well, you're quite welcome, Vince. I mean, the whole thing, man, is to God be the glory. We're glad that we were able to link up and, be able to pray for you and pray with you. So, it's truly a blessing, to be able to, disseminate those things to you. So thank you.
It's fantastic. I really like that. Okay, so share with me, what was life like in Frederick, Maryland? Your dad, Preston, and your mom, Diane, and what was life like in Frederick, Maryland in your youth?
Well, growing up in public housing, and one of the biggest things is that, as you're growing up, you see more or less the core sports, and you see what's going on, and you want to basically to have an opportunity, to maybe someday get out and someday to be able to come back and give what was given to you. And that's hope and opportunity. And, my whole thing was that, my mom, she just really stressed that the education component, as long as you can read and write, you can pretty much do, anything that you want to do. So just grew up, playing sports, particularly basketball, baseball, all of the core sports, even played tennis. But it was just that one thing that, just saw that round ball. I didn't want the ball to use me. I wanted to use it. And was definitely truly a blessing to be able to get involved in some of the youth leagues. And my mom, she worked really hard, made a lot of sacrifices, for the things for my brother and I, for sure, whether that was working long hours or whether that was working multiple jobs, just to make sure, that we were actually being able to be taken care of, along with my grandmother and my Uncle Ray, those folks, just made sure that we had what we needed, not so much had what we wanted. There's a difference, had the things that we need in order to, be successful and actually, try to attain the dreams, that we actually wanted to do.
You mentioned you picked up the sports. Now, you accelerated in the basketball right away, actually earlier than your high school days. So share with me who may have been an influence in you with the basketball, and how your desire picked up and to really go after it.
Well, one of the things is that, I was a manager ball boy, for the local high school team. And I just always wanted to be around, that group of individuals. And it's been several folks that basically that more or less, I call them octopuses, that actually were able to help me and steer me in the right direction. I'll probably lose quite a few, miss a couple names if I begin to name them all. But my Uncle Ray, he was very inspiring, as far as playing this game and getting the right tools and stuff. And then as he put you in the right situations, you begin to meet guys and the older generation. I mean, of course, here we had a lot of folks that actually played this game of basketball. And Kevin Allen, who was a great point guard that I thought at Frederick High School. He was an outstanding basketball player. I had a guy by the name of, Alan Green, who was another good player, and then Benji Biggis, and, the list goes on and on and on. A lot of guys in this community that did things, but one guy that, that got me really thinking about youth and giving back was a gentleman by the name of TJ Swan. God rest his soul, he's passed away, but he always was involved in doing things with youth. And I kind of like those things, how he was giving back. He was a graduate of Morgan State University. And then he came back to the community and was more or less doing a lot of good things, with the young people, and along with like Willis Hall was another person. But, I just always, once I was able to, play this game that we call basketball, I always just envisioned that, one day I'll be able to return back and give what was given to me. And that was hope and opportunity.
Wow. Now, you're a 3-year letterman at Frederick High School. And I think it's the dream of every high school ball player to be awarded a scholarship and really on any level. And it's a mark of achievement. So you get a scholarship to Clarion University. So, I mean, this was like life had begun to take root for you on another level now. So share with me, when you knew you got recruited, you got the scholarship, what began to go through your mind, and how are you preparing for what was next?
Well, the thing of it is, it's like as you play, and this game that we love so much, basketball, and then next thing you know, you get a letter, or not an email, because there was no emails back then. You get that snail mail, or you get a phone call, and you're just wondering, I mean, what is this all about? And my high school coach at the time, Bud Rogers, who was definitely like a father figure to me, he had passed away as well. He started to, generate and to let me know exactly what this is all about. But when I got that opportunity, at several colleges, and to go to Clarion, to hear that voice from Joe DiGregorio, and to offer me an athletic, scholarship. I mean, that was just basically saying, to God be the glory, dreams do come true. Uh-huh. So I was really excited about that. And, it was like, I was just going to another level, really having that opportunity, because, growing up and you're only 5'6", 5'7", you spend a lot of time on the basketball court, and playing guys will basically say, you're not going to make it. You're too short. You're not going to do this. No way. Nobody's actually ever done this. So my whole thing was that, I just continue to have that driving force, to be successful. Again, some people say, you do things to prove people wrong. That wasn't me. I was just, having a driving force actually to obtain a goal. And the goal of mine was basically be able to go and play at the next level. And it's important that you say that, because a lot of folks, me as a college coach, and a lot of folks basically, some of the high school coaches may sell that pie in the sky to student athletes, saying, hey, you're D1, you're D1, you're D1. Then they don't become D1, so then they feel like they're a bust. My thing is that I always tell our student athletes, especially when I was at the high school level, is that, you have the ability to play at the next level. What level is going to determine how well you do on and off the court. And it's only 7%, of student athletes that actually get a college scholarship. So I always try to tell them, don't focus on the level, be appreciative, and stay humble, on the opportunity, because that's the most important thing. As you know, Joe DiGregorio, we had a sign in our locker room. It said, the sure way to miss success is to miss the opportunity. So as long as we focus on the opportunity, not the level, you'll be very successful.
NFTs are appearing everywhere, even in yoga. Hello Yoga World is an NFT uniting people worldwide. People come to mint beautiful artwork with unique elements of yoga and sacred geometry and stay for the heartfelt community. Global yoga and meditation events and collaborate with other people from around the world to build a more sustainable planet. To learn more or mint your art and join their community in making a global scale impact, visit helloyogaworld.com. So this is fantastic. Now, I do want to touch on, because you step outside after you graduated Clarion and you go into public service work, and you're a probation officer, and this goes on for 25 years. So how did the decision come to be in that skill set or that career? And you had all this motivation with the athletics and the developmental skills and your education in a different category. So kind of explain to me how the two worked out. And then obviously the sports was your true love, and it takes over later on. But this is a very interesting job of which you took here.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know if you remember, when I was a freshman at Clarion, I was actually, studying and taking a lot of criminal justice law classes and stuff. I thought maybe that might have been the road I wanted to take, but then I veered off and, end up going into communications. But, it lines up, being a probation officer, it lines up exactly, what I think my mission is. Like they say, you are God's, what you are is God's gift to you. What you become is your gift to God. And I think my whole thing was that to be able to help young folks and to be a juvenile probation officer, well over 25 years, I've seen the highs and I've seen the lows. But most importantly, I always say this too shall pass. And when you're probation officer, you have to look at the holistic approach. What is your goal? And my thing is that, I always tell folks, I don't lock them up, I try to lift them up. It's all about empowerment, because you don't want folks to graduate from the juvenile system and end up now going to the adult system and trying to get another degree. You want to basically try to hone in on them then on that particular setting, and being able to get into this line of work. I couldn't have been blessed with a better field.
It matches with your personality and hearing your upbringing and what you went through. So the idea that you wanted to give back, it played out in full with your studies and then just positioning yourself to happen. So if you would share with me what is going on with the Virginia Department of Juvenile Justice Board. You're on the Beat the Odds board of director. Like, one thing begets another, and you basically have two careers paralleling each other.
And what it is basically about, putting together strategic plans, for young people. Which is the most important thing. And again, it's not about you, it's about them. And as you put together these strategic plans, you're trying to see, what's in the betterment of young people. Sometimes you may folks be able to, you have to agree to disagree sometimes, and your idea may not be the one, but to get you on the right track, you got to say, who is this going to benefit? Is it benefiting me, or is it benefiting them? Which is the most important thing. And then you're talking about beating the odds. And one of the most important things about beating the odds is that, knowing that you may be in an arena, or you may have had some short falls and folks basically saying that it will never happen. But you have to be able to, reward those folks that have struggled. And now they're basically propelling, because I always say that their life didn't fail, their life basically propelled. And that's what it's all about, as they continue to grow and get better, because, one day they'll probably have a family. And you're hoping that somewhere you're able to, break that cycle and say, you can, and you are somebody. I always tell young folks, when I had a youth group years ago, and some of the folks still talk to me, but I always say, if your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, then you can achieve it, because you are somebody. Now you got to have that mindset to now believe what it is that you're talking about. And when you're able to do those type of things, then it begins to take a toll on you, and then you become even a better individual.
Just fantastic. Your basketball skill set comes in because, like, for myself, I'm seeing the fundamentals. You're creating a platform for these kids to step into, visualize themselves, take their character issues and apply to what you're sharing with them. This is fantastic. I have to touch on the you're on the board with the Wayman AME Church, and you're appointed the Stewart Board of Directors. So share with me, because I can feel the church and the spirituality rising up in you a bit here, and you are involved in it. So to what degree, and what are you looking to accomplish over there?
And the thing of it is, when you're on what we consider as what we call the Steward Board, I mean, it's definitely a high standard, and something that you really have to take serious. And I would be wrong to sit there and say, hey, Vince, you know what, man, I always cross every T and dotted every I. But I know that there's a God, and I know there's a forgiving God, and I thank him each and every day for his grace and his mercy. And the spirit part of it is that, that's some of the stuff that you have to be able to instill in others within your congregation. But the most important person that you have to instill that into and believe it is yourself, because you can't give someone else something that you don't even know. Or you can't give someone else something that you're not doing yourself. So it's almost like you have to take a self-inventory, and what are you feeding? Are you feeding the flesh, or are you feeding the spirit? It's the spirit man versus the flesh man. And if you feed the thing, and whatever you feed, that's what's going to grow. And whatever you feed, and that's all you're going to know. And whatever you feed, and that's what you're going to continue to do. So the spiritual side is very important, and being able to manifest and actually to give that out, to others. But the most important thing is it's something that you have to be able to receive.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. Be our friend on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Whether jumping out the MP or jumping on the app.
You are listening to Vince Cortese. We just want you to leave your mark.
Now, this brings me up to your current job, and you are now at Frederick Community College. So you're climbing the ladder. You started out coaching girls, you go to high school, now you're on a college level. This is a JUCO?
Yes, that is
okay. Correct. So yeah, no, you're definitely climbing the ladder here now. You're very seasoned. We can hear this by your approach, and your experience speaks for itself. So share with me some of the things that you like to instill, or you've set as the new standard, being the new coach there. Was this your second or third year coming up?
Well, this will be my second year.
Okay. Yeah, because I knew the position was new. So I'm in the locker room. I'm a new player, and I want to hear what Coach D got to say.
Well, first of all, mindset means everything. That's the most important thing. And then you're talking about, trust the process, and believing in what it is, that you're trying to get across every player. I'm truly humble and excited about this position. I tell people all the time, sometimes, man, it could bring you to tears, because the office that I'm sitting in at the college, my college office, is the same office that Mr. Al Panza, who's passed away, he was the head coach there. So I'm in the same office as it was when he was recruiting me. I'm just on a different side of the seat. That becomes full circle. And then I'm truly humble and blessed by Mr. Larry Johnson, who actually was gracious enough to give me the call, and our outgoing president, Dr. Powell. Now we get ready bringing a new president, Anessa Cheek, Dr. Anessa Cheek, the first African-American female president. And I'm just super excited to get to working with her. But this is a great opportunity, man. I'm telling you, to be able to change lives of, I say young folks, but I'm saying change lives of families. When you're able to reach out, whether it's Zoom, whether it's in the house, wherever it may be, to get and give a kid an opportunity to do something that I wanted to do when I was a kid. And that's actually go to college and play at the next level. Wow. But when you're in the locker room, a lot of our talks are based upon, not only just the X's and O's, but the game of life, because you have to have those things, because the air is going to come out of the ball one day. And I always tell our guys, each and every day at practice, every day at workout, when I greet them and say, hey, good afternoon, whatever, And I always say, I pray that your family's doing well. And then I always ask, did you reach out to somebody in your family today that you haven't talked to in a long period of time? Because you don't want to be the one that says, I'm going to call them tomorrow, because tomorrow may be too late. It's just really teaching these guys, these young men, I'm sorry, the true value of just the game of life, and how you can actually correlate this game of basketball with it, because they both can run hand in hand, but it's just a matter of how you actually proceed and actually trust the process with it.
This is fantastic. So as I asked all my guests, how would you like to be remembered? How you want to leave your mark?
Well, one of the things is that, don't remember me for what I didn't do. Okay. Remember me for what it was that I did do. And one of the things that people, want people to realize is that, I was a humble individual who wanted to just give back to the community and give the community give young folks two big platforms. And that's hope and that's opportunity. Because if you can instill that, that helium in the balloon, if I can give them the hope and opportunity, as we always talk about sometimes, if I could give them that hope and opportunity, like I'm on the board of I Believe in Me, and our thing is that we want to be hope dealers. And that's what it's all about, being hope dealers. So I would love to be folks to remember me again, not for what I didn't do, but what I did do. And one of the things I did, I cared for, young people, and I gave them two platforms, hope and opportunity.
You're a man of action. That's all I can say. I mean, I'm looking at this and just knowing you throughout the years, you get an idea and you make a decision, you move on it. And the results are in your resume. And it's a pleasure getting to talk to you and revisiting life all these years later. I'm very proud of you. And I appreciate you coming by and sharing your story.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, man. It's truly a blessing. It's always an honor to talk to you, my friend, whether it's on camera or off camera. Love you like a brother, man. I mean,
yep.
We was there at Clarion together, Campbell Hall.
That special moments in your youth.
That's right, man.
You were the guy.
That's right, man. I just give God all the praise, honor, and glory, man, because, without him, there's no me. So he's given me a lot of tools and opportunities to change the lives of young folks. And that's what it's all about. You can't put a price tag on that at all. So thank you so much, man.
All right. Well, we'll be watching for you over in Frederick. We're going to watch you climb to the next level. I feel it coming. You got too much good in you to come out yet.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. God bless you. Thanks, Vince.
Thanks for listening to Leave Your Mark today. Tune into our next episode of Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese. Be blessed.
You just left your mark. Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes on demand. Just click Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese.